It's coming, it's on its way. We're going to start. Freddie Tiernan got one. There you go. Welcome to the Eric Beach Memorial Reading. Yay! It's been a while coming, but finally we got there. Lynn Boughton and me were the ones who really wanted to put this on for some time. I just want to acknowledge that we're on Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung land, and all respect to the ancestors, the elders and the mob. This is the bell I brought for 5 minutes, just a polite, hey, you know.
That's not going to work.
This is the bell that Michael Reynolds bought, and that's the get the fuck off, alright?
He's run a lot of gigs.
I'd like to thank Michael Reynolds for his fantastic photography. This was yours, wasn't it, Michael? And also the poster that you might have seen on Facebook. Was that yours as well? Wonderful photographer. And if you'd like a copy of a beautiful photo of Eric, see this man, he might be able to sell you a good copy. Yeah, he will, he's nodding. Yeah, or buy a copy of Unusual Work from Pio Collected Works. That's what I've got, that's my copy up there. Love it. Alright.
I got it.
Talk about Eric for a little bit. This was an anthology that came out recently about expat New Zealand poets, of which Eric was one. And they asked me to put a bio together for him. So I said, Eric Beach was born in Hastings, New Zealand on October 21st, 1947. He arrived in Australia in the early 1970s, choosing to live in Melbourne because it was still the capital of jazz. He was a big part of the performance poetry movement, giving countless readings and running workshops all over the country. In the 1990s, Eric moved to Hobart in Tasmania for some years. I put in Tasmania because those New Zealanders might know where Hobart is. During which time he won the Launceston Poetry Cup, which happens to be the world's first poetry slam, though the Americans claim it. Hang on, I've prematurely turned the page. There must be a word for that. He returned to mainland Australia and bought a house in Minyip, the Wimmera town of Minyip in Western Victoria, and that's where he spent the remainder of his life. Eric published 8 poetry collections, the best known being Weeping for Lost Babylon, which was published by Anguish and Robbery in 1996. Angus and Robertson, if you're not into that in-joke. And it won the prestigious Kenneth Slessor Poetry Prize in that year's New South Wales Premier's Literary Awards. It also won the Dinny O'Hearn Prize, which I think might be the name for the Age Poetry Book of the Year, because he won that. So maybe that's 2 more prizes or just 1, I'm not sure. He also wrote plays and short stories and worked with many musicians, including Judy Jarks, who's very sorry she can't be here today, and that's just how the cookie crumbles. She's not well. He was considered by his peers to be one of Australia's greatest poets, and I say hear, hear to that. Yeah, he was. We were lucky to know him. Eric Beach died on November the 5th, which was Melbourne Cup Day, in 2024, aged 77. and don't we all miss him? And I'll say very briefly about his poetry. He was a poet with one of the broadest reaches of kinds of poetry and kinds of audience that he could connect with. Absolutely broad in that. Well, a lot of humour in his poetry. So I'm hoping you'll get to hear a really good assortment of Eric Beach poems today. How exciting. We should make it a regular event, eh? All right, I'm going to kick off by reading one of Eric's poems.
Oh, okay.
Okay, this is from his I Want to Be Normal chapbook, I guess you call it, but it's a beautiful collection. And this one's called Hello Tutama. I pick up the phone and someone's singing. There are laughs in the singing, so I can figure out that this bloke is saying hello. Billy's American voice breaks in. That was Tutama saying hello in Pintupi. He wants to see you because I sung him your song. I'm on my way to the malnutrition ball. It's a good song, he says. Why don't you fly up and meet him? Over. Haven't got any money. Over. I'll shout. Over. I get off the plane at Alice Springs. Alijapring. Clasp hands with Tutama. He touches very gently. I grip. So begins my embarrassment. He says, I was Jabal-Jari. Something like that. That means I'm his uncle, right? We go to the supermarket. I push the trolley, Tutama fills it. At the checkout, you pay, says Tutama. No, it was he pays. I pull out my last $2. Tutama cracks up. You white fella, you millionaire! I push the trolley. Tutama puts everything back. He thinks it's a great joke. Gets himself a hat like mine, $1.99. And yeah, I'll just read this one that I wrote about Eric. 5 suitcases. I visited Eric over the years. His house dirtier, messier each time. The last few, he wouldn't let me in. We'd sit in the yard, have a chat, a beer and a joint. COVID in the nursing home. He died on Melbourne Cup Day, around 3 in the afternoon. A long way from the track, but close to a TV, the cheering crowd. One of our greatest, another Kiwi. The far lap of Australian poetry. Lengths ahead of the others. The biggest heart. Now in a race against rodents, insects, vagrants, arsonists, being dead. The state trustees locked his place up. I knew there was poetry in there. I checked every door and window. Thought I'd have to break in at the cop shop just over the fence. Finally, permission and a key. Found 5 heavy suitcases filled with writing. I'm old now. I felt like I was collecting what I'll be doing with the rest of my life. I want Eric to win the race. Ghost horse, unscratchable. Well, racing. We have a special guest with us.
Yeah.
This is Neil Murray, who was a friend of Eric's, and he has set one of Eric's songs to music, I believe. Is that what you're playing? Well, make him welcome, everyone. Beautiful. Make him welcome.
Thank you very much. I've been waiting for this for a long time. Do something for Eric. I saw him a couple of times when he was in respite, what it was. Hills,
Oh, the home.
Melody there.
Yeah. We just learned some of
I said, how are you? He said, I'm fucked. He had a bit of influence on me in the late 70s. Certainly made me aware about words that really count. They matter to get the right words and to get rid of all the sentimental cliche drivel that I might have had prior to that. So anyway, this is a song that a poem of Eric's that I put to music in the late 80s, early 90s. I think it's called Too Many Love Songs. There's too many love songs. All I can think of is you. Too bad so many been done wrong. Believe the sky will turn blue. What can I let last an hour? Can a flower still be? Has a lover any power? Can I shall it be? Now that my heart has been broken, all I can hear is the clock. Send you the hands as a token. Believe if I wait that you'd not. Well, can it last an hour? Can a flower still be? Has a lover power? Can it should it be? I know there's too many sad songs with the blues and everything. Too bad so many been done wrong. The sister blood buried in jeans. Can a minute last an hour? Can a flower still be? Has a lover any power? Can it shall it be? What's a dawn without a lover? What's a you without a me? What's a road without a mower? What's a shoe do on a shoe tree? Shooby-doo, shooby-doo.
Okay, we're lucky, happy people, and the next reader is going to be Peter Sullivan.
Yes.
Where are you, Pete? Here he comes, give him a hand.
I did a lot of lighting work in the theatre and things like that, and I was invited there to do a play with Barry Dickens. So there were a few other people there. There was Gig Ryan and Stephen Master. I can't remember who else. Eric. Anyway, everyone was sort of competing for my services, and it was a little bit stressful, really, because I thought I was only lighting one show, and I ended up lighting 5. So the only person I could really talk to that was being sensible was Eric, which was kind of.
Believe.
I thought someone might have an issue with that.
Rather unkidding.
Eric, it was really a bit about who Eric was. His humanity was there kind of all the time. He wasn't big noting or doing any of that stuff. And none of the people there really had a real reason to big note, actually. It's a little bit low. Thank you.
Watch the camera. Sorry.
Anyway, I'll just start reading something. How's that? That's better. Yeah.
Yeah.
Some musos go electric. Where we play, it's a gas. You can't try to be eccentric. You only got what you has. Are you living on an offbeat, taking it as it has? Yeah, there's no old man. There's no old man. There's no old man in jazz. People smoking, drinking, talk shyaking, it's a razz. People dancing, think they're walking, it's an ease the music has. It's Brilliantine and Valentine's, drape coat, crepe shoes, craze ass, yeah. There's no old man, there's no old man in jazz. Long blonde lady, 40s movie, genuine silver hip flask. Cool man, hot man, like warm, groovy, dig it, bury it, inter it. Doodads, 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 doodads. Mama, 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 be bad. Yeah, there's no old man. There's no old man. There's no old man in jazz. This is a poem by Eric from Going Down Swinging, which had the Jazz Tribute CD inside, which is home somewhere. And this is for jazz from Eric. I walked in, half carried him to a cab. Thought he was drunk all of a sudden. But now I think maybe it was the diabetes that perhaps neither of us knew about then, to flake out so dramatically. Jazz was even heavier than he looked. I felt the weight of his arm around my shoulder. A generous friend who never gave much away. A natural anarchist, being able to talk and listen at the same time. My experience of consensus, he told me, is that the one with the loudest voice wins. Jazz had a very loud voice, seldom raised off stage. He began as a stuttering human saxophone. Ain't no bebop where he's gone. He broke his leg on the post office steps and died on the lips of a song, almost reading a poem to the entire ward in a very loud voice. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. Next up we have Kevin Brophy.
Thanks, Lauren. We loved Eric. We loved his poetry. We loved his performances, Myron and I, through the 1980s into the 90s. And we packed as much of his poetry as we could into Going Down Swinging over those years. I'm going to read you a poem called Losing Poems from his prize-winning book, Weeping for Lost Babylon. Losing poems. May as well try and save dried sweat of a working summer, ice in a hot bath, or try to get a better deal by trading your old love in on a new model. But when a bag of poems goes missing on the plane, or maybe the taxi, well, you try to make a sky from scraps in puddles. Ever tried to reread carbon paper? A few good lines shored up by fringe, but you're living on a rapidly eroding coast. New poems coming in, flashing white teeth. Time goes begging. You think of everything you lost in corridors, rooms that once seemed important, where you failed suicide. Finally, you chase up those good love poems. Only the lady was unsentimental. You go home hoping she didn't really lose them, that she burned them or ripped them up and ate them. Thank you, Eric.
The wonderful Claire Gaskin can be here today. Anyway, she sent a message and I'd like to read it out. I remember Eric with gratitude for his generosity of spirit and support and role model of belief in poetry. Poetry owes him a lot, and so do I. Respect and love to Eric.
Thank you.
Claire Gaskin.
Before I introduce the next reader, I'll just say we have found 17 copies of this in Eric's suitcases of writing, and it's edited by him with one poem by him on the back, but he was working with handicapped people in Tasmania, and his hand is in these beautiful poems, like his influence. He's a great teacher, a really great teacher. So everyone who reads is going in the hat. Yeah, so if you'll be in the draw for this if you're reading tonight. Okay, this afternoon I should say. The next reader is our camera person over here, Mr. Ken Smeaky.
It's an honour to be here amongst the poets. Eric, in 1977, wrote a letter to Poets of Australia, prefiguring the Poets' Union. I've done a vox pop recently around different venue owners, runners and organisers, and I'll make comments after this poem that we recorded in 1983 at La Mama, and I played on my 3CR program called People in Performance. Eric Beach's poems, a satire on local poets. La Mama, La Mama. Shelton Lee is old thighs and eyes, old dead eye and dead horse. Reading poetry with a whisky voice, Sunday night, drunk on applause, afterwards he snores. Meantime it's swearing, cursing, swearing, cursing, swearing, cursing coming from the audience, and money in the hat. And Jeffrey Eggleston, the gnome of Carlton, on a 10-speed cyclic history somewhere between Johnny's Green Room and Terra del Fuego. His poems stick, the poet bits, his back turned to the audience, half of them leave and half of them go to Johnny's Green Room or Terra del Fuego. And Pio's popping the mic, and someone yells, I can't make out the words too well. Do you care we can't hear? And Pio says, no, I don't want to communicate. I want to express myself. I love that. And here's Ken Smeaton, a keen man on safari. And poor Tom, the street poet, shouting, Matahari. Doppelganger, Hawaiian burger, Marie, the hairy canary, completely extempore, wow-how, Bauhaus, regurgitate, ad nauseum, so hummus. And now, this academic, he doesn't deserve a name, except in a grant from the literature board. He thinks poetry is a branch of anthropology. He's just brought back the latest from New Guinea. He's doing the dance of the headless chook. Barry Dickens is shouting, the hook, the hook. Barry Dickens is helped on stage, his hand to his brow. He's got the audience rising now. So what does he do? 5 minutes ago I was in an accident, and now I'm different. And taking off the poet who went before, Self, Part 4. A gig for Melbourne's Patti Smith. She weaves, she's pissed, she's stoned, she's independent and on the phone. She's creating a no man's land out there, fighting a fight against underwear, a colourful life and a monotone. And finally, the open section, mystery cliches, breeziness, treasonous, a lost soul in Nidri, footloose in Footscray, I'm the only one alone. This is my book, published by my auntie. My birth is my nascence, my life out on loan. My death overdue, where appropriate, groan. I haven't got a poem about Eric. I've done lots for Eric, but I've got some remarks. I did a vox pop recently amongst venue organisers in Melbourne. Now, are there anyone for the Poets Union here? Put your hand up and hang your head in shame. You've done very little to help the venues. Who pays for the features? Who brings people from the country town? Who gives the money to the people who run it? It should be the Poets Union supporting them. The thing that is the engine of poetry in Melbourne is the venues, the open mic, and the ability to bring a feature onto you every time. So think about it. In the Poets Union, you've got a job ahead of you. Thank you.
And that was a party political announcement by Ken Smeaton. Our next reader is John McKelvey. Please make him welcome.
I love Derek's poetry. This is called It Wasn't That. He interjected through the poetry reading. It wasn't that he sang country and western over the road until the publican turned the radio up, then came round to my place with a bottle of whiskey. It wasn't that he harangued me, actually beating his chest while screaming great poetry and beat you are one of the 3 great poets in the country. It wasn't that he drank half the bottle of whiskey in an hour. It wasn't that he tried out a rugby tackle on me. Xavier, old boys tend to do that when they're stinking. It wasn't that I observed soberly that I'd had enough, agreeing with Rex that he was too drunk to drive. It wasn't that he adopted a comatose attitude when I spoke to him sharply. Drunks retain a certain cunning. It wasn't that I dreamt that he was shouting, "Father! Father!" It wasn't that I woke to a smoke-filled house and a drunk with a hose in my lounge room. It wasn't that I carried blazing foam in a newspaper out while he stood in the backyard congratulating me on being alive. It wasn't that he left me in a blackened house shouting at me, "I promised I'd pay half, didn't I?" It wasn't that he rang up and offered to pay a third. It was that when I carried out the blazing foam, he asked me for a light.
Some of us know who that poet is. See me later. Our next reader is Barry. Barry is close to hand.
I'll have a go at this. Can we be heard?
Yes.
It can be heard, okay. The brief bit of the interpersonal stuff is that in the years of the Poets Union, in the years of our Footscray Community Arts Centre readings where we workshopped poetry in the years of 200 or 300 readings a year we did in that era. He was there, I was there. A mischievous sense of humour he had, a cheeky grin, always looking for some other fun to get up to, a fine man to have known. This is a poem he wrote, a phone call from Mal, alluding to Mal Morgan, a poet. I'm sorry, mate. Ken's sorry too. You know, my son, 4 years ago, didn't feel guilty. Was he mad? Do you want to talk about it? Remember, I'm just a phone call away. Mel works for Lifeline. He has a curiously soothing voice. Maybe from running a chemist shop opposite a notorious pub, where the law of the street meets the law of the land. At Lifeline, people ring up, tell me one good reason why I shouldn't kill myself. I have a black sense of humour, wouldn't suit that job. I rang Mel 4 years ago. Don't forget you've got friends. I'm thinking of the Punjabi. When someone dies, they're referred to as Kumanji. You know, Kumanji, Nosepig's brother. Skirting the dead man's name. Grief has almost a palpable presence. People say, your son. They never remember his name.
Thanks, Barry. We're roughly halfway through, so after Hamish is here, I've seen him over there. After Hamish, we'll be having a 10-15 minute break.
Thank you. Can you hear me clearly? Good. Yeah, great to be here for the Eric Beach Memorial reading. On my 68th birthday last August, I was hosting spoken word at Bar Usid, my weekly Tuesday night gig at Brunswick. And one of the young regular poets, I forget who, said, I just found a pile of books outside a shop that was closing down in Camberwell on the way here. And he handed me a few poetry books, and in the middle of that small pile was an Eric Beach chapbook I'd never seen before, titled St Kilda Meets Hugo Ball. Yeah, what a gem, yeah, what a rarity. And a few nights later, I took it over to Footscray to Lish at her poetry perspective event. I thought Lish might be here today, and gave it to her. Yeah, but it was such a gem of a book to find, unexpectedly. Just at random, sitting outside a closing down shop in Camberwell. Wonderful. It was a wonderful way to be reintroduced to Eric. I bring greetings from the Queensland-based poet Alan Jeffries, who I've known for nearly 40 years. Alan was the poet many years ago when we first got to know each other, who introduced me to the poetry of Eric Beach. Yeah, and that's been very important in my life ever since. I'm going to read I Hate Poetry. Yes. Those readings where you sit still until the chairs ache and you stare fixedly at the wax flies on the ceiling and someone's great thoughts roll around in heads untenanted like city buildings on empty nights, and the lonely words window shopping. I hate poetry. I hate butterflies. I hate electric shock. I hate someone putting a thrill through me. Romantic poems as painful as the one you love calling long distance. I like massed one-man bands. I want poetry to be a little nervous about opening the door, but only because it's in a hurry to get to the bed. I've never been to bed with a poem. Most poems would be too stuck up. For hundreds of years, poetry vanished into the blankness between the legs of dolls. Suddenly, poetry discovered that it had pubic hair, and beneath the hair, a crude sketch of genitalia. Meet me here at 3 o'clock. Act suspicious. Poetry that never turned up. Poetry that played cruel jokes. A rose painted black and laid on a young girl's pillow. Poetry that's always pressing in the earth, always on about graves. I'd rather fill in the gaps between friends. I hate poetry. I
I won't be caught like Cassius, dead with poetry. Poetry is a train of thought which refuses to arrive.
Oh, buzzing from that. Okay, our next reader is Pio, who really doesn't need a microphone. What am I saying?
The Whitlam Square Bash. Where were you that afternoon? I heard the story in a cab. The radio called all cars back to base. The Governor General's done a smash and grab. There's an empty lot in Fitzroy. There's hardly 10 square metres there. The council got themselves a sign and they called it Whitlam Square. They put the army on grey alert. They heard we were shooting pool. There was a tank in every kindergarten. They thought subversive meant preschool. How come the VD clinic is next to the dole office? How come the nut house is next to the zoo? How come the army lounged around in the corridors? When they said, Mr. Whitlam, you're through. There's an empty lot in Fitzroy. There's hardly 10 square metres there. This council got themselves a sign and they called it Whitlam Square.
We're going to have a 10-minute break.